Hi, my name is Paul Hopkinson, and today I'm going to show you how I painted the comb and the wattle of a rooster in watercolour. So I'm going to give you some general ideas on how to do that today. So something that looks quite complicated. What is it? Let's get the brushes wet, shall we? And let's get started. Now the first thing we need to do with this is put a very basic wash over all the pink areas, and I mean a very light watery wash of colour. And what I tend to do with that, keep it really pale, so more water than pigment really. So what I want to do really is just get a basic colour wash on the paper. Take away that white of the paper a little bit. Because when you look at that reference photograph, you can see there aren't that many really sort of bright white highlights there, are there? The highlights are really like a very pale pink. The beauty about doing it this way around, because when we get the darker tones on the face, you find those pale areas which you put that first wash on will actually start to look white. I know, they do. You think, really? I did put a wash on there to begin with, didn't I? I'm sure I did. So bear that in mind when you're working on it. So we're not using the white of the paper, we're just using a very pink, pale wash. I'll show you what I mean. Well, that's soaked in quite well on there. Add your pink over the top. Now this will dry paler because the water on the paper will make it a little bit lighter. Very lightly. Move it around. Remember, we don't want it too rich. And fill in those areas that we just wetted down. Oh, and don't forget to click on like and subscribe down below, because at least that way around, when I put another video here on YouTube for you to watch, you shouldn't miss it. Now once that wash is on, what I decided to do is have a play with some masking fluid. It's trying to plan the picture out before we start. So I tend to take a lot of mental notes. Yeah, try and remember them as a thing, so write them down as well. It does help. And also plenty of colour checking as well. Make sure you get your colours right before you start. Because at least that way around, you know you're not going to make too many colour mistakes along the way. But I decided with masking fluid, I'm going to stipple it on. And I use a very, very old brush for that. I mean, this is an old brush, ancient. Something that's destined for the bin. Because we know that masking fluid can ruin your paintbrushes, it really can. So be very careful not to use your very best brushes for that masking fluid, okay? I'm also thinking about where I'm applying those stipple marks as well, because what you need to think about is the curves that we can see within, say, the comb area there, just for one area anyway, and where the highlighted areas are. So what you're trying to do is reserve those highlighted areas, which is that pale pink wash we put on right at the beginning, isn't it? So stippling little curves, small little marks here and there, around the top edges. What I'm trying to do is stipple with a vertical motion like that. I can't do it properly on camera because you can't see my brush, so I've got to angle it a little bit. So my angle is more or less like that, but you want to do it vertically when you're doing something like this. Because at least that way around, when you very lightly mind, tap on the paper, you find you leave very tiny little dots of masking fluid. If you go from an angle, you push the masking fluid like that, won't you? Which then means you'll end up with a very long sort of line. You don't want that. So tiny stipples, barely touching that paper. Once that's dried, then I've got to think about adding more colour over the top. This is where we start to use a stippling technique, and the stippling technique is a really good one to work with. But you need to do this in different layers. This is also where we've got to start considering the shape of all the areas within even just the comb area. When you look at this, I'll bring it up on the screen as well. You can see within the comb, you've got sort of ridges there, like sort of, creases really, aren't they, in a way? So I need to preserve those areas within those creases. So what I'm actually doing, I'm easing off those stipple marks within those areas. That's it. So stipple more, where it's obviously more intense in colour, then reduce the amount of stipples as you get to those lighter sections within the comb, or anywhere else around the face. So a tiny little figure of eights actually is all I'm doing here. So all I mean by that, if I get some nice scrap paper here again, is little swirls like that. So imagine a figure of eight, obviously. Little tiny swirls. I'm going very small like this lot. Very small. All over the entire comb. Okay, dry fingers, here we go. Masking fluid removal time, here we go. Very lightly go over the top of the paint. Make sure it's dry though, obviously. And remove that masking fluid off the paper. As you increase those layers of stipples, you'll find you start to create more shape within the face. And that's the important part, because initially it looks really flat, very, very flat. And I know my members call that the ugly stage. And I know that's not very polite, but I can see their point. That's because we haven't got any contrasting colours there yet. We haven't got any deeper tones to really make it stand out. That's when we put another layer over the top, thickening the consistency of the paint all the time for every single layer. And even adding a touch of blue within that kind of pinky red mix. Because at least that way around I can add those really sort of deep shadowed areas, which aren't dark, are they? Not really, really dark, but dark enough to create that sort of shape and form within the comb and all the areas around the face. So this is what I did with that. I'm going to use that one just to add in our darkest area on the front part here. So it's not black, is it? It's like a very dark purpley red. But this colour will suffice it really well. And a few odd ones on this side as well. Remember to allow some of the other colour to show through, so don't completely block it in. How would you like to paint a European robin in watercolour? Yes, that's the one with the red breast. Oh, I've got a link down below for you where you can go to that video on how to paint that. All from the beginning right through to the very end, the full video lesson. And also you get the outline drawing and that reference photograph as well. It's all for free. And some other video lessons as well. It's all on my Patreon channel. So pop along there and take a look. But you know, it's when you get those darkest layers on the paper, you tend to start seeing it really come together. You know, and you think, wow, now that's looking much better now. Now we've got some sort of 3D effect around all of this pink skin on its face. But see, then we start adding the darkest tones in there. When the darkest tones are on, then you start to get the shape within the face, all the sort of contours and curves which I've been needing all the time. And you find that all those wobbly bits within the face have more shape within them now. Oh, I like. But you know what I mean. And once that's on, we've got to think about adding some white paint. White. Let me show you. Now then, I want to make this creamy. Bit of water. Pop it into there, a bit more water, pop it into there. So it's still creamy, but it flows. Look at the angle these go at as well. You know, these are sort of going towards, what would you say, 7, 8 o'clock, something like that. Around there. We've got some around the side of the area of the beak here. So I'm going to add some little white marks there. We'll tone these down in a minute. Doesn't take a lot to do, and it really doesn't. Just so they're not pure white. And again, I can just go over some of these highlights within the wattle just to make them stand out. Just a touch more, but don't go overboard with it. So don't put too much on. It's so tempting because you think, oh, I can put loads of white all over there as well. No, it's not white, it's pink, isn't it? Now the thing when you're adding white paint onto the face, so I can look a little bit over bright, a little bit stark, a little bit too white in places anyway. So what you need to do is tone it down. Once it's dry, get a little bit of colour, then just very light pass over the top of that white paint. Very light, barely touching the paper at all. One fell swoop. And that way, what that will do, could tone that white down with a little bit of colour. A little bit of colour. Which it will do, and then that will help it sink back in a little bit. So it's not too bright, it's not too stark, not too in your face. Bit like me really. Now, I obviously like painting birds, as you can see here. Now I've got plenty of videos here on YouTube on how to paint birds. So take a look at the link to the top right hand corner of the screen. I'll see you there.